Okay, now that we have Visual Studio Code set up with all the settings and the JDK, etc., we want to download the code from Project Lead the Way and make sure that it runs, and then do some manipulation of some of the objects that we're going to create. So you go to activity 122. You could scroll down a little bit and you could actually click on these up at the top. Or, like I said in the Empower activity, you can go to step 26 and then pick whichever option, because your code is right in the top of that file. So I'm going to download it. Once it is finished downloading, I'm going to open up that zip file, and I need to extract all of these files. So I'm going to do extract all, but instead of just putting it to my downloads, which you technically can do, but then you don't really have a place to save it to your own. So we're going to create a new file. So we're going to browse, and then I'm just going to create it on my desktop and create a new file or a new folder. PLTWCSA. I'm going to open that. And then anytime we download a new project, I strongly recommend that you create a new folder for that project. And the easiest thing to name it would be based on the numbers over here. So that way, if you're missing project 123, then you can just go directly to that folder and use underscores instead of like dots or spaces. Like, don't put spaces in your file or your folder names, just for good practice. So then you're going to make sure you open that folder so that when we extract it, it goes right in there. So you can see the file path, and just select extract. Once it's finished, we can close those windows and open up Visual Studio Code. I can close these. So I'm going to go to File and then Open Folder. It may take you directly there, but if not, then find the file path. So it's on my desktop, PLTWCSA, and then actually select the folder. If you stop here and it looks like this, it's going to select it, but it's going to then list all the folders, which in the future you may want to do, but it's nice to just open that specific project. Okay, now to actually run the code for this project, because you have so many different classes, you want the cakemaker.java class, and if I double click on it, another window may pop up, but you can just close it. This is what it should look like. So there's only, 4 lines of code. So up at the top, you can run your code here. You can run it up here. You can run with debugging or without debugging. For now, we're going to run without debugging, or we're just going to use this button here or here. When I run it, the first time that you run it, you probably will get a little box that pops up that gives you a message. I can't remember exactly what it says. If you get that message, remind me what it says, and then I'll tell you which option to pick, because I don't remember. But then once we do that, then it'll run like normal. You should get a GUI that pops up, but if it doesn't, check at the bottom. So mine opened, but it must have went behind my screen. So once this opens up, now we can actually run the CakeMaker project. As a reminder, so I go back into Project Lead the Way. I want to go down to 1, 2, 3, void method, and then scroll all the way to the bottom so we can remind ourselves like what methods are available to us. So we have these 2 constructors, cake and then cake, where we can put in an integer for the number of tiers with values 1 through 3. And then we have these methods to create different tiers if we just create a regular cake object and then we want to make a 3-tiered cake, for example, or we want to add candles. So let me just demo it here. So the first thing you have to do is create a new cake. And we'll call it cake 1 equals a new cake. And I'm going to use the empty constructor. And we talked about this, but the empty constructor will create just a 1-tiered cake. And then if I want to change that same cake object, so cake 1, if I want that to be a two-tiered cake, I can do cake one dot and then run this method that's called two tiers and make sure all your like camel case and spelling and everything exactly the same, and then we can execute that and it changes my cake to two tiers. You could also use the cake constructor, so we could do cake, let's say cake 2, new cake, and let's say I want to automatically create it. I could put a 2 right in there because I have this cake constructor that allows me to put in an integer, and it's going to create another cake beside here that will also be 2 tiers. Okay, then you could run the add candles, or I'll let you kind of mess around with that, or you could change cake 1 back to a 1-tiered cake. But that's the basics of that, and then just let me know if you have any questions.